Okay. We're just gonna do this point blank to play around with it, but I just wanted to let this horse be an example of a verse that I read, which is John 1, and it's talking about Jesus and the fullness of his character. And it says, "The Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we have seen his glory, glory as the only Son from the Father, full of truth and grace." And I just wanted to show that in order to have any kind of partnership, it has to be this in-between, equal, ongoing, ever-present balance of partnership. And partnership can't exist without truth and grace. And the truth here is that this is a horse. This is not a dog. This is not a cat. Good boy. This is come here. Hey. This is a perfect example of truth, because the truth is it's about how the horse uses his five senses, how he feels. Not feels like emotionally, like if he feels like doing something today because he's lazy or frisky. but seeing if this is probably winding him up a little too much. Seeing if the truth, being that he has prey animal tendencies and physiology, what the truth is with him ongoing, currently. Come here. Fascinating. Come here. Do you want some scratches? Come here. Sometimes the truth is, at the moment, that the horse hasn't been worked with in a long time. Come on. And that I wish you guys could hear him talking. He's like squealing. Come here. Hey. This silly boy. Come on. Come on. The truth is he has been not really worked with for I would say 6 months, and he is quite bored and frisky. Just going by the truth of what we're working with. Circumstantially, environmentally, he hasn't been played with, and he's the type of horse that's he's a busybody and he likes to work. I have other horses that aren't really like that, but he is one of those that does like to work. He doesn't really act his age. He's like 16 or something. And so when he is bored, he kind of, I'd say, gets a little bit sassy in the partnership, because he's like, what have you been doing? I've missed hanging out with you. And so now he's telling me all about it. And not in the sense that I'm putting words in his mouth, but in the sense of feeling of and for his personality and his character. The truth and the fact of the matter is, he's a horse who likes to work, he likes to have a job, and he hasn't been really played with on the level that he works at. I don't know if that makes sense to anyone, but this is a kind of a pro rodeo rehab horse, so he's used to working very hard, very diligently, and he's not a merry-go-round horse, so he likes to use his brain. And when he doesn't use his brain, he gets a little bit sassy. So we are going to put a halter on him because we don't want him to hurt himself, and that's another thing to take into consideration for the truth part of it, is that if a horse hasn't really been worked with in quite some time, they are bound to be bound up and frisky. So it's in everyone's best interest to dignify that horse's soundness and not let him go running around like a maniac and let him hurt something, especially if the horse is a little bit quote-unquote older. It's just smart not to let him tweak anything just because they're excited to see you. So, the way that I test what the truth is by testing the series of all 10 movements a horse can do. Again, that's operating within the truth of like, what do horses do in their God-given physiology. And they move in 10 directions. So we're going to test all 10 of those directions and see what he tells us about that. And if the truth is he's connected to us, then he's showing us a lot of grace. And if the truth is he's not connected to us, we need to show him a lot of grace, and what that means is not letting him just run around and act like a maniac. We need to show him grace by giving him a task that he is familiar with, that he can get connected to us on. So a lot of times when a horse is acting kind of frisky like that, we just want to stifle it. We just want to get it manageable and under control. And that's not how you get things under control, by stifling them. You get things under control by putting them within a boundary, and the boundary is a task. So you can see this horse is a little extra in that he can't even chill. He even has to trot fancy. So finally he breathed out there a little bit. We are going to offer him grace by putting him within the boundary of a task, which is, I didn't say run around, full blast, like on a barrel pattern in a tiny 50-foot pen, I just said, could you walk forward? Could you walk forward? That's it. And so that's the truth. That's the task. Can you do this? I'm asking him, can you do this? And he's like, yeah. And then he gives me a little extra. But I think the thing is, when horses give us extra without us really directing it, that's their dominance. And partnership is all about obedience. It's equal parts truth and grace. And he's the truth that I'm working with, and I'm the grace that's guiding him. But then I am the truth that is providing a task within a boundary, and his grace is that, well, he's a horse and he's offering me some connection. Even just thinking about that, like how how uncommon it is for us and our nature to be really self-willed out of our own self-will, I guess. We're just going to seek things out and do them because we're capable. A horse doesn't really have that in them. They always need a leader. And sometimes their leader is their instincts for survival, and sometimes their leader is a head mare in a herd naturally. And that really is the way that it is. Like, a horse doesn't just deceitfully try to do things the way that a person would, because they're trying to get something out of it. So even though this seems so simple, just walking in a circle, and this is probably boring on the outside to watch, like everybody thinks, oh, I can lunge my horse in a circle. Well, can you do it with a really empathetic, aware, intentional feel? And empathetic doesn't mean sympathetic. It means, if I were this horse, ... If I were this horse, I would have his 5 senses plus his spirit, his emotions. And if I were this horse and I hadn't been worked with in 6 months, and I was like basically a racehorse that was being kept in a miniature pony yard, I would be pretty freaking bored. So I would probably be making up games to, and I should say making up dominance games, not just like making up things. Making up dominance games to see, am I the leader or is she the leader? Am I the leader or is she the leader? And the truth is, I'm the leader, but it really is with a partnership. And so that's where the feel comes in. If we're feeling of and for and together with this horse, we have his 5 senses and spirit in mind, or having empathy for him, the truth of his physiology, the truth of his environment and circumstances. And his obedience is really coming out now, that even though he would love to run in a circle and play, I'm saying that we can't play with that amount of energy until you know how to responsibly use it within a task or a boundary. So just because a horse can do something, it's within his ability, it's our grace, it's our partnership and leadership that is going to allow that ability within a task. And that's how you get a horse not to get on burnout row, is that just because it's in his ability to run barrels and he wants to do it and he's anticipating it, because prey animals love patterns. They take the same path over and over and over again, and that's why I think barrels can kind of come so naturally and automatically to a horse. So we are wanting to expect a lot out of a horse, but we're not gonna expect the level of our goals or the vision in our mind until he can show us that he can do a task within a boundary. A lot of times in relation to humans, a trainer is like all truth, and we've all seen this ridiculous cartoon of the truth is I'm the boss, you're gonna do what I say because God gave us dominion over all the creatures that crawl and creep. And you see this little cartoon scenario of this 45-degree nonsense following the horse around. This is like truth, all dowie buddy, dowie, all truth and no grace. Grace is letting the horse have a choice to be obedient. He's not your puppet. People that are like all truth trainers that are like micromanaging how a horse goes in a circle, how a horse uses his body, without really having a feel for where he's at physically, mentally, or in his spirit. That's like, that the truth is we do need to have complete dominance and leadership over them. The truth is we can manage their stride and response and reaction to us with really good timing, but people that just are like all truth mongers, you must do it within this boundary, they're not going to have a lot of feel. Their horse isn't going to be soft out of wanting to hold their hand. The horse is just going to be responding really out of submission and knowing he has no other choice. And I think there is an in-between. And the in-between that we're talking about is equal parts truth and grace. That is partnership. But on the other hand, there's also people that are like all parts grace. And I'd say you probably don't see a lot of those in the barrel horse world, but a lot of times it's like, oh, my horse only likes to be touched up here. Don't mess with his ears. Oh, my horse, he doesn't like to be fussed with under the tail. Oh, my horse is nervous under here. Oh, my horse is kicky around his flank. That's like the grace. So we just like kind of creep around without any type of deliberance in our movement, and we manage them like this. Oh, well, he's just excited, and easy, back, just kind of afraid to use any other parts of his body. And we just think, well, I'll just manage what I can, and I'll just let him, let him do the rest. And, in some ways, barrel racers are guilty of just being more on the weighted side of grace versus truth, because they don't want to acknowledge the truth that their horse does need more understanding and task from their leader. So it's just important to acknowledge, well, the truth is horses are kind of skeptical creatures. Like, really, my husband calls them, they're just big mice, because they're just so scared of everything, and you can pretty easily manage them under whatever tool is your choice. Like, horses are adaptable and we're handy with tools. It's just the truth of it. So we can pretty well figure out how to manage them with a certain type of bit, and we can run them around in a circle till they're tired and eventually hit that physiological flight line of a mile and a half, and they turn around and face us and we think, oh, by golly, I've got his submission. So the truth is, we're using all of his 5 senses plus his spirit, and we're being empathetic to that. We're relating to that, and it's our responsibility to do things in a way that he's going to understand according to the truth of how an equus operates. So even though this is like very basic stuff to him, it's like, if he can't get connected and not act like a wild maniac here, then what makes me think I'm being a good leader, trying to just manage and stifle his abilities on the end of a rope? So, equal parts truth and grace, and maybe we can start to put a little bit of a task to this.